All right, Mike, we're back, and we've been gone for a little while because MMA has been kind of dry. Anyway, what's going on with you, man?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, but my little buddy Fizzband, my one of my kitty cats, he's feeling a little bit under the weather. I had to get some blood work and some urinalysis work for him. We're hopefully going to hear something in the next couple days, and hopefully my little guy will be good. That's the only thing really going on in my neck of the woods, my friend. How about you?
Yeah, everything's going good here. My son has taken off for the Air Force, so
That's
he's
awesome.
18, and he's actually just landed in Texas to start his basic training. So really proud of him. Lots of mixed emotions with it, but I'm very proud of him.
Yeah, Nate, if you could hear this, man, I know I haven't seen you as much as I could have, but man, I remember when you were just a little baby boy.
Yeah, they grow fast. Anyway, let's get on to this fight rewind. We only got one fight to cover, really. I mean, how many fights are we going to cover here in this one fight card?
Well, we got Joe Lozon, Marcin Held, as well as BJ Penn and Yair Rodriguez, but there's really more discussion about probably
Yeah.
BJ Penn about what he's going to do after, because it didn't take very long for the fight.
Yeah, I don't expect this show to be very long, but it's going to be a show. So let's go ahead and start it off with UFC 103, Mike. Let's get started with BJ Penn.
Fight Rewind.
I thought BJ Penn looked good coming out. Honestly, he walked out. He looked I'm not trying to be funny either. I mean, he walking out, to his music. He looked great. He physically, he looked like he was ready to go. I said, okay, well, maybe we might have something here, because I figured Rodriguez would win, but you just never know with Penn, with the power in his hands and going to Jackson Winklejohn and all that stuff like that. But he looked ready and ready at 145. I mean, we all know he had a hard time making 155, but he looked ready at 145. But he was not ready for Rodriguez, man. He was not ready for Rodriguez. TKO in round two, right in the beginning of round two. I think BJ landed one really hard punch, and that was it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm in the opposite camp here. I was not looking forward to this fight at all, and you know that. I mean, I've said for a long time now, I think BJ Penn should just stay retired. He shouldn't be fighting anymore. Time has passed him by. All these fighters have passed him by. All these young guys. Yair Rodriguez, this guy is he's an amazing fighter. He's a good up-and-coming fighter. This guy is a solid fighter to watch, and for him to get thrown to Rodriguez, though, I thought was a little odd. It was an odd choice. Why Rodriguez, do you think?
Well, I think it's because he wanted somebody hopefully in the top 10, so that if he got a win, he might be a fight or two away from fighting for the featherweight title. Like you said, Rodriguez is a solid fighter. He's a pretty good. He's a really good fighter, but he hadn't been tested yet against anybody in the top 10.
Yeah.
So to me, it made some sense. Though I wish that he would have. And I don't know if BJ asked for somebody in the top 10, or if the UFC gave him somebody in the top 10 like Yair. But I think he should have come back and fought somebody more of a an FS1 guy, so somebody of that caliber who's a good fighter, that
Yep.
name, not maybe like a Joe Lozon, of course not Joe Lozon, because they were friends and he coached him, but somebody in that caliber, that would say, okay, he's back. But even that, Jay, I would have fine with him fighting somebody less than that, just to get him back and acclimated.
Or even like a Jim Miller,
Yeah.
Yair Rodriguez, I just did not understand that fight at all with him, because it was the speed difference that you knew was going to come into play. And Rodriguez is a fast fighter, and we saw BJ. That's BJ doesn't. He's lost a step. Let's just put it that way. And I didn't see him getting anything back from what he used to be. Did you?
What do you mean by that, Jay?
What I mean is, do you think that do you think he's lost a step?
Yeah, I think he's.
Yeah.
Well, okay, this is something I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad you brought that up. He had lost a step when he fought Frankie Edgar 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he give him another guy. Look at where Frankie Edgar is now. Now Frankie Edgar is not, he's not like past his prime or anything like that. But he's older now, and he lost to Jose Aldo, which is not a bad thing. But he's still winning fights, but he's not who he was. Talking about Frankie Edgar now, a few years ago, or even 5 years ago when he had the title. And now they give him not Frankie Edgar, who's older now, but Yair Rodriguez, who is even more flashy and more and probably more fast right now.
Yep.
And so that was kind of odd. But I saw nothing in Penn that, even when they were in the clinch in the first round, that showed me that he was back or anything like that. The other thing too is that BJ Penn has always been a front runner. When he gets behind, it's over. He's
exactly.
You know what I mean? So I knew after the first round was over, it was done. There was none of this. He's going to come back, crack him, hurt him. It's a whole new ball game. I knew that wasn't going to happen, and I was hoping that would happen. I know we didn't do any picks, Jay. I did do a thing on the I did do a thing on Facebook, just asking what everybody thought. I did go with Yair Rodriguez personally, but I was hoping for BJ Penn.
Yeah, I think deep down, a lot of us were hoping for BJ Penn. Regardless of where we thought he was at. And that's exactly what I was getting at, is what you touched on there, is that even going to Winklejohn and Jackson's gym, he didn't gain any of that that old spark back that he used to have, that old fight in him. He's slowed down. He's lost a step, and he hasn't gained any of that back, and he's not going to. And I mean, it is what it is. I saw this coming, and unfortunately for BJ, I don't think he comes back to fight again. I don't know why he would at this point.
No, I agree. He's done it a couple times now. He's 38 years old. He's already in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he can go to Bellator or anything like that if he wants to. I don't know what his what it says in his contract. He doesn't even, it's sad that he keeps doing this because his legacy is sound. It's totally sound. I mean, people that, only watch the UFC, they don't know, him fighting at heavyweight. They don't know him, fighting in Japan and all over the world, but after he beat Matt Hughes to win the welterweight title. I mean, that's why he never fought. That's why he never defended the welterweight title after he won it, because he left the UFC. It's a long story, but from a long time ago, I won't get into it, but he left and went around the world fighting. I mean, he fought Lyoto Machida. I don't know how many people know that, but he fought Lyoto Machida. He lost. But Lyoto Machida's a light heavyweight. BJ Penn is a bad dude, win or lose, and he had a really great stretch. I still consider him to be the best lightweight ever, even better than my boy Benson Henderson, who had who had some great fights. But hang it up and just be cool, man. Go to conventions, go meet fans, who love you, and don't jump back in the octagon.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Hopefully he's learned his lesson here, I guess, and he stays retired, and he can live a comfortable life. I don't think he needed the money. I don't think that's why he came back.
He's never needed the money. He comes from a rich family. He's beloved already, even if he wasn't from a rich family. People love him in Hawaii. They love him in in stateside. They love him everywhere. Jay, one thing I just want to just color the picture here before we move on, too, is that for people who maybe missed the fight, Yair Rodriguez was just hitting him with everything: kicks, punches, combinations. The combination, the right front kick to the face, and then the right straight or whatever it was to knock him down was just beautiful, phenomenal. Yair Rodriguez just looked great, and I thought something I wrote on Facebook is that, BJ Penn he's been finished, but he's never tapped, and he's never, he's always contested. He's never been fully out when he loses. And that's what happened in this fight as well. As soon as Big John jumped in the middle and pulled Yair off, which I thought was a good call. He gave him a lot of time to fight back. What's the first thing that BJ did? He's like, "What did you do that for?" BJ Penn is a stud.
Yeah, no. Hey, you can't take that away from him. And the fact that he has such a great chin, I think he's got one of the best chins of all time in the sport.
Yeah.
He really does. It's very hard to knock that guy down. And for Rodriguez to do that is a testament to his power and just his skill level. Rodriguez is somebody to look out for. That said, I think BJ Penn still needs to hang it up. So.
Jay, I also think just moving on real quick with to end this discussion. I know, but where does Yair Rodriguez go from here? I mean, looking at the top 10, you've got Brian Ortega, Dennis Bermudez, Charles Oliveira jumps out as a great fight, and I'd like to see that fight.
I think he beats Oliveira. I think he beats all three of those guys.
Yeah, because after that, you get into some serious contenders here with Anthony Pettis. Well, not Anthony Pettis anymore. He's going back to lightweight.
Yeah.
But you got Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson, Ricardo Lamas, Frankie Edgar, and so on. So.
Yeah, and I think he beats a few of those guys too. This kid looks very promising. I'm really high on this kid lately, and I want to see him do. I want to see him go far.
The only thing I'm interested in, well, not interested, I'm worried about for him though is, and I noticed this in his last fight, and I believe you and I talked about it, and even one of the commentators talked about it as well, Kenny Florian, that a lot of the way he throws punches and kicks and how wild he is, a guy who's really good at striking, at technical striking, might be able to pop him and knock him out or at least hurt him. And I was looking possibly for that from BJ Penn, because BJ Penn is older and slower now. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, I could see that happening, Mike, if he fights somebody with good striking and everything. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this kid. You know, he's got a great skill set. He's really he's young, and I just can't wait to see him move up the ranks, because I know he will.
Yeah, moving on. The other one we'll cover here is Joe Lozon versus Marcin Held. I thought Marcin Held won that fight. Marcin Held thought he won that fight. Joe Lozon thought he won that fight.
I thought he won that
Joe
fight.
Lozon for saying so.
Yeah, and I thought he won that fight. Hands down.
Score was 27-30, 29-28, 29-28 in favor of Joe Lozon. But man, Marcin Held was on point in that fight. He looked exactly how I thought he would look in his octagon debut, but he didn't look like that. Obviously, he got the octagon jitters against against Diego Sanchez. Or it's possible that he didn't like being pressured the way, and Sanchez is good at that. But no, Held looks great. And I really love the fact that not only did Joe Lozon say that he lost the fight, that Held won, he pleaded with Sean Shelby not to cut him. I mean, he's already a fan favorite. Man, everybody loves Joe Lozon. If you don't love Joe Lozon, you need to get a throat punch. All right. So for him to do this was even better.
Yeah, it really was. It just shows what kind of classy guy Joe Lozon is. You know, I've always liked Joe Lozon, and for him to do that was just awesome. As far as Marcin Held, though, I thought he did everything he should have done and won this fight hands down. And I don't know what the judges were talking about here. I don't know what they saw, Mike. But this is why you don't leave it in the hands of these judges. And some of these judges are just downright horrible.
Yeah, so I mean, I would have given Joe Lozon the first round based off the elbows, against the cage. I certainly could give him that round. But the other two rounds, Marcin Held got the takedowns, was really strong with the grappling. And I realized that one of the rounds, Lozon did get him in an armbar, but he got out of it fairly easily. But I just hope they keep Marcin Held around. He's not one of my super favorite fighters, Jay, but he's one of those guys that he's a submission ace, and I like really good submission guys. They're really exciting as long as they're continuing to, submit guys at least, every couple of fights.
And, I got to add to that, too. I think that he's actually getting better at the striking game, too. He seems to be growing there as well. So, yeah, I definitely want him to keep him around. There's no reason to cut this guy, especially when he obviously won this fight. Those judges were just terrible here. I'm just really upset at this fight. It really pissed me off.
Yeah, and you talk about the striking being better. Maybe that's where Sanchez comes in, where Diego Sanchez comes in with his being pressured. The pressure from Sanchez could have got to Held, so he didn't look as good as in his stand-up. But a guy like Joe Lozon is more methodical. He's more figuring things out as he's on the go. And so that's maybe why why Held was able to look as good as he did, or at least, look his normal self. Real quick, I know we weren't going to cover it too much, but just because we're talking about the bad judging, Court McGee, he lost his fight and certainly should have won that fight against Ben Saunders. And that again, those two fights of the night were just really oddly judged. Yeah,
no, of course, that's another one that I was really upset with. Court McGee won that fight. I don't care what people say there. Marcin Held won his fight. It's just getting. It seems like sometimes this judging has gotten worse.
And we keep talking about it. That's the thing. We keep talking about it, and that's sad because as we're moving on, farther into this sport and how many years it's been around, it should be getting better. We used to talk about refs more often than judging. And now we talk more about judging than refs, and I don't know what's worse. I assume judging is worse, but the refs kind of something. If they make a bad call or something, that hurts a fighter's career as well. And these guys, a lot of these guys, they might be on the main card, but they're on a main card of a Fox Sports 1 card. They're not making a ton of money based off their skill set and what they bring to the table. So, some guy like Court McGee, who his main thing is winning the Ultimate Fighter, and he's trying to rise up the ranks, and then now he's knocked back off of a bad decision. It's just bad news.
Yeah, no, I agree, man, and it's so sad that this is going on still. You would think that after so many years now, with the sport growing as much as it has, that there would be some kind of schooling for these judges to go through before actually being able to judge these fights. Because I, from what I gather, these judges are just like boxing judges, and they're not really schooled in mixed martial arts. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's at least how it was for a long time. I don't know if it's changed or not, but yeah, Joe Rogan would talk about that. He'd talk about how these are boxing guys, and that's why a lot of the things that if it was more stand-up, they would give more credence to it, even though like the grappling might be better or something like that. So, it's going to have to – I don't know how it's going to shape up. I don't know if, WMIE or whatever, whoever just bought the UFC, if they can get some money into fixing this or what. But, right now I'm still watching the sport, still loving the sport, but it's just a black eye.
Yeah. It's definitely money well spent if they throw it at judging and, putting them through some sort of schooling there.
News Corner.
So we got some news here. Some things we'll do a little deeper than others. Right off the bat, we're going to talk a little Chael Sonnen. And not for very long, just to let you guys know, if you're not watching the Celebrity Apprentice, he's on the new Celebrity Apprentice, I should say. And he's been actually doing fairly well. I'm watching the show because I'm a Chael Sonnen fan, and I want to see how, what he does in the octagon and on the mic, how he does on this kind of reality game show. And he did lose episode 3 as a project manager, but he wasn't fired, which means he continues on in the game. I'm not going to get too deeply into this. But then he came up big last night in what they had to do. He was the reason they won, which was great. But last night they also had a preview for next week's episode. Looks like it might be Sonnen who's up to no good. It might be his time to leave. But if you haven't seen the show, Chael Sonnen's been doing good, and I say check it out if you want. I've been having fun watching it, but if you don't check it out, hey man, no big deal. One other thing dealing with TV, last night on Kevin Can Wait, Boss Rutan was on, played kind of a tough guy, which is pretty cool. If you guys remember, maybe a couple months ago, I talked about how Chris Weidman was on the show. I may have forgot to talk about that. If I did forget to talk about it, well, guess what? Chris Weidman was on that show about a couple months ago, had a larger role. So Kevin James is obviously a mixed martial arts fan. He has been for a long time. He actually had some fighters on King of Queens back in the day as well. So, check these guys out. A little interesting stuff with World Series of Fighting number 35. Blagoy Ivanov will defend against Sean Jordan, but they've pushed it back from February to March. Ivanov is one of those guys I think is one of the best heavyweights out there. Could easily be in the UFC. He's 14-1 with 1 no contest. He's got 5 TKOs and 6 subs. And he's fought in Bellator as well, 6-1 in Bellator. He's going to take on Jordan, who's 19-7, but he's got 15 KOs as a UFC vet. So I think that's going to be a pretty good heavyweight fight. I think it'll be more than just Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but you never know. Jay, what do you think on that?
Not a real big fan of these two fighters, so I really don't put too much thought into this fight.
No, that's cool. I just think Ivanov is the real deal. I hope he jumps ship as soon as he can, but we'll see. Another fight that's coming up. This is going to be the main event of Bellator 172. It's Czech Congo versus Ali Thompson. I'm kind of tired of seeing Congo fight, but he's on a 3-fight win streak, and he's picking up Ali Thompson, who was just knocked out by Matt Mitrione. If you guys remember that fight, it was a great fight, I thought. I believe it was over in the second. Mitrione got the KO, but Ali Thompson was legit in that fight. And he's pretty well rounded, but basically it's going to be a kickboxer versus a strongman, because Ali Thompson was a British strongman winner. Jay, I don't have much to say about that fight, just that's the main event.
Yeah, and Ali Thompson, of course, is the guy that Matt Mitrione beat the last time he was in the
Yeah.
octagon, or the last time he was fighting for Bellator.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then what's up next? This is an interesting move, I think. Rafael Dos Anjos moves to welterweight. I like to see him fight somebody in the top, maybe top 15. Jake Ellenberger, Tarek Safadine, Matt Brown, maybe Johnny Hendricks if he still wants to fight.
Yeah, I don't know about that Johnny Hendricks. I don't know if I want to see him fighting Dos Anjos right now. I think Dos Anjos would beat him in the shape we've seen Johnny in lately. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I think he beats Hendricks. I think he might beat Jake Ellenberger as well. I don't know about Tarek Safadine, but I don't want Dos Anjos to be the world. I know he's not the world beater he was when he was the champ, but I don't think he's as bad as he is since he's lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure on that, but moving on to some really big fights here. Now we have Anderson Silva versus Derek Brunson and Jacare Souza versus Tim Boetsch at UFC 208 on February 11th. I like both those fights. I like the names. I think Jacare is going to run through Tim Boetsch. I'm a fan of Tim Boetsch, but I think Jacare is going to run through him. But the Anderson Silva-Derek Brunson fight, I think, is a really good fight to make. They both lost their last fights. Well, Anderson Silva hasn't won since 2012. But they're both great strikers. It should be an exciting fight. We'll see if Silva still has it. See if Brunson can finally get a really big-name win. What do you think of those fights, Jay?
I don't think Anderson has it anymore, personally. And as for Jacare versus Tim Boetsch, Jacare is going to win that fight.
Yeah, and I think he might be able to get it done early on Tim Boetsch. But, Anderson Silva did come up big against Michael Bisping 2 fights ago. And so I think he's still got a little left in the tank. And that's why I'm excited to see this fight.
Yeah, I'm not calling him out completely. I'm not saying that there's no way he can win this fight or anything. I'm just saying that he like BJ Penn has lost a step. So
yeah, getting up there in his heyday is well behind him. Shogun is fighting Gian Villante at a UFC Fight Night 107. That's in Brazil on March 11th. If you're not too familiar with Villante, guys, he's 15-7 with 10 KO, TKOs, and 2 submissions. 5-4 in the UFC and no big wins overall. And they're putting him up against Shogun. We all know Shogun's not the guy he used to be. I think this could be his last fight if he's fighting a guy like this, to be honest with you. I know Villante was kind of a Strikeforce veteran as well, but this is just a name for somebody for Shogun to beat, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys don't know who Shogun is, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You want to go ahead and move on?
Yeah.
All right. Something that's not a laughing matter, although I thought it's kind of been overblown just a little bit, and I did write about it on Facebook, was Meryl Streep dissing MMA at the Golden Globes, and she kind of dissed football a little bit too, basically saying that mixed martial arts is not an art and all that other stuff like that. Jay, I don't know how much you want to get into this. I wrote about it on Facebook, said my piece already. I'll just say to Meryl Streep that she doesn't have to belittle other people's likes and loves to make hers seem better.
Yeah, and I do want to actually add, did you see the cartoon that was made by somebody where Conor McGregor throws a can at Meryl Streep's head?
Yes! Yeah,
hilarious. If you guys haven't seen that, look it up. It's on YouTube, on Twitter. It's everywhere, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, you guys take a look at that. I'm sure if you haven't heard about it, you'll find it easily online. Just that Meryl Streep was basically talking about Donald Trump without saying his name, and then said that because they're the Hollywood Foreign Press is what does the Golden Globes, that they are the most vilified people in America right now. Hollywood, because it's Hollywood, foreigners, and then the press. And so, if we took them away, then all we'd have to watch is football and mixed martial arts. And mixed martial arts is not the arts. And so it got into a big thing. Scott Coker invited her to watch an event. He was very diplomatic about it, talked about how it is an art, and how these people come from America and all around the world and to do their thing. So anyway, take a look at that. It's pretty good. Marlos Kunin versus Julia Budd for the inaugural featherweight title at Bellator 174 on March 11th as well. That was already supposed to happen a little bit ago. If you guys remember, Budd got hurt, and Alexis Dufresne stepped in and actually, tapped Marlis Kunin, which was just one of the biggest upsets of the year. But now they're finally going to redo this fight, try and get it going on in March. And the reason that Dufresne isn't fighting is because she was overweight for that fight. So I'm looking forward to that because look, Juliana Budd I didn't know as well, but she's 9-2 with 3 TKOs and 1 sub, but she's riding a 7-fight win streak right now. That's from Invicta and Bellator. I'm excited for this fight, Jay. Are you excited, or are you just what are you feeling?
I'm not feeling excited for this fight. Both of these fighters have been around for a while now. And as far as Kunin goes, man, I think just like these other fighters, that have been around in the sport for a while, I think a lot of these younger fighters have passed them by, and I'm not excited anymore when I see her fight.
I hear you. I understand that. One thing I'm excited about for me, though, is that the Bellator is trying to bring back another, women's division. I forget what division they had, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, but that just didn't work out. Maybe they can get it off the ground here. But, if it doesn't get off the ground, then we'll just make sure we have Invicta in the UFC. But, and Kunin could easily move over if she wanted to. And then moving on, this is a big card, man. I'll tell you what, it's UFC 209. UFC 208 is a fine card. It's a good card. I'm excited for that card. Nothing like UFC 209. Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson 2. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Mark Hunt versus Alistair Overeem. That's all going to be at UFC 209. I'm super excited about that. If you're not super excited about that, Jay, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'm not excited about it at all, especially the Stephen Boy, the Wonder Boy fight. I'm not excited for that, man. I can't stand him. I think he's too slow, flat-footed. The guy can't fight. No, actually, no.
What are you talking about?
It's all the opposite of just what I just said. I am very excited for this fight because I thought he won the first fight. I did. I was in that camp. So I can't wait to see this fight again, as well as Tony Ferguson versus Khabib. Oh, my. That fight is going to be fantastic, Mike.
And there's one thing that I don't like about this fight, and we've talked about it off the air, of course, and that is interim lightweight championship.
Why? People, I'm getting sick and tired of these interim belts. They make no sense, especially when the champ is not going to fight for just 6 months and you're going to have an interim. Gee, I can go back and remember Cain Velasquez not fighting for a year and there's no interim belt. What is going on with the UFC? The new owners of the UFC have lost their interim mind.
Yeah, it is basically the number one contendership belt. It feels like it's something out of the WWE. It's not good for our sport.
And wait a minute, and that's what I told you when you texted me that. I said this feels like pro wrestling. What they're doing.
Maybe I got it from you then.
Yeah, it does. It feels like pro wrestling, and it's ridiculous with all these belts.
Yeah, and it's something that I think maybe it goes along with how they get paid, that if you fight for a title you get a bonus, or if you win a title you get a bonus. Maybe it's something on that end with money. But
how about you be a real champ and get a belt?
Oh, I'm with you on that.
These
I totally
fake
agree.
Belts need to stop.
But one thing that makes this good though for Tony Ferguson is I probably would have picked, and we're both Tony Ferguson fans, and people out there, if you've been listening, we're both Ferguson fans. Is I probably would have picked Khabib Nurmagomedov in a 3-round fight. I'm leaning towards Ferguson now that it's going to be a 5-round fight. And that's what comes into play here, is that now they can make it a 5-round fight because it's for a belt.
I hope you're right. I really do, because I want to see Ferguson have that gold. I really thought that Ferguson, for a long time now, we both thought that he would be champ someday. This is unfortunately not the way I wanted to see him become champ with an interim title. But as far as Khabib goes, man, I'm still going Khabib here, even though it's a 5-round fight. I think Khabib, with the way he looked in his last fight, he's so heavy and strong at that weight class. And what I mean by heavy is when he lays on people, and he doesn't just lay there, mind you, but when he gets on top of you, he puts heavy pressure on his opponent. It's crazy.
Yeah, the only thing I will say, and I do agree with that though, but I will say the wrinkle is Tony Ferguson is way better off of his back than Michael Johnson is.
True,
He
true.
attacks off his back and not just looking for submissions, but like strikes off his back. So he might be able to actually pressure Khabib into losing a little bit of steam and losing some concentration and catch him in something. This fight can go either way for me. I'm excited to see it. I don't see Tony Ferguson lighting him up, and for a first round decision that almost happened for Michael Johnson when he fought Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, I was going to
I
bring that
also
up.
don't see the other opposite. I don't see Nurmagomedov handling him for all 5 rounds. I think we're going to see just some good scrambles, some good off the back. I don't know. I'm really excited. This may be, let's see, probably the most I'm excited about a fight maybe all year that's coming up. I realize this is February, so it's excuse me, it's March. So, but probably this one as well as Wonder Boy and Woodley.
It's the best card for this year so far.
Yeah.
And I'm just as excited as you are for these fights.
All right, well, hey, moving on. Then we got Liam McGeary versus Chris Fields at Bellator 173 on February 24th. That's going to be in Ireland. That's where Chris Fields comes into. Bit odd to me, Jay. Fields is 11-7 with 6 TKOs and 5 subs. So even though he's 11-7, he's got that well-rounded finishing rate. I mean, he's finished everybody he's beaten. The problem though is that why is Liam McGeary, who is like 10-1, why is he fighting a nobody?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
He just lost the belt. How is he fighting some guy I've never heard of?
Because it's Bellator.
You're right.
and Bellator does some weird things sometimes. And I'm starting to think the same thing of the UFC now with the new owners. Seriously, it's really getting weird now with MMA lately.
Well, I was telling a buddy at work that I don't know how long the UFC is going to be this upper echelon. It'll still be the best. It'll still be around. But the moves that are being made are just really hurting the sport, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I'll always be watching it. I've told you, and I've told a few other people as well. Look, if the sport goes back to 2005, I'd watch it. In that how that looks.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not going to watch it, but it's just really odd the moves that are being made.
Despite these odd moves that are being made, we still, if you look at its core, we still have some fantastic fighters to watch, and that isn't going away. That's why we will continue to watch the sport and support it. However, when you put too many belts into the picture, it takes away from the true belt holders. It really makes it seem cheaper than it actually is. As a whole, the whole sport, it just feels cheaper.
And to casuals or to people who are trying to get into the sport. Well, I thought Conor McGregor was the champ. You're saying Ferguson's the champ? Well, no, he's the interim champ. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that when the real champ is, is hurt or whatever and can't fight for years, they make an interim champ because, they don't want, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's not hurt. He's coming back in 6 months. Yeah, I know, but, you can't do it.
And then what's next? Oh, well, we'll wait for the MMA Royal Rumble and see who wins that.
Right.
Come on. This is not wrestling. And I know pro wrestling generates billions of dollars. It's a big time, entertainment sport. But this is, I hate to put it this way, wrestling fans, but this is a real sport, and I don't want it tainted by that kind of foolishness.
And you can like both sports. It's two different things. Both things. They're completely different. They don't have to. It's like boxing. When people talk about boxing and MMA, you can like both. They're completely different. Yeah. I mean, the only same thing about boxing and MMA is that boxing is in MMA. I mean, that's all.
Yeah, and pretty soon it's going to get to the point, Mike, where you're going to be saying, well, Conor can't fight for 3 months, so they're putting up an interim. What? Like, seriously? Where's the line drawn? Is 6 months too long? Seriously.
Yeah, it's silly, but I'll say this though, man. I am happy that so far a lot of the, let's use Tyron Woodley for example, simply because he just now signed to fight Wonder Boy. He wanted to fight other people, and he never got to fight Nick Diaz or GSP. Mm-hmm. He fought the number one contender, and they forced him to. Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, both of those guys could have fought for the title for Conor McGregor. But since McGregor's out, they're having those two best guys fight. Now, you can say they shouldn't fight because you're killing a contender off, and I fully understand that and agree with that. But you're still getting the two top guys fighting. So we still have that, at least, Jay, which I'm happy about. It's when we get away from that that's really going to be tough. Because if Nick Diaz continues to be on everybody's mind when they win a championship fight, I don't know. It's just a really odd thing.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Nick Diaz hasn't fought in, 3 years? I mean,
seriously.
Probably
more than that.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man. I don't think at this point, if he came back, he'd be really viable. I don't think he'd break into the top 10 right now.
Yeah. Well, if he does come back, it's the rumor is Robbie Lawler, and that'd be a great fight to watch. But I digress. Carla Esparza versus Randa Marcos at UFC Fight Night 105.
Now this is the fight of the year right here.
And that's going to be on February 19th. Esparza just beat Juliana Lima to get back in the WinCom, after losing her belt to Yin Jacek. So I'm interested to see what Esparza does. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but she's obviously skilled. What's interesting is Marcos is 6-4. She's got 3 TKOs and 3 subs. So when she wins, she looks good doing it.
Yeah.
She just lost to Courtney Casey by an armbar, so it just seems like it's a fight to put together to give Carla Esparza more move towards the title. That's kind of how I look at it.
Possibly, but who knows? Because we could get the Randa Marcos that destroys people. So we don't know who we're going to get that night.
Yeah, or Pennington who beat Tate. Retired Tate. So. So that's going to be I think that'll be a nice fight. I like Randa Marcos, but we'll see what happens. Stefan Struve has a shoulder injury and is out of his rematch with Junior Dos Santos at UFC Fight Night 105. I'm pretty bummed about that. Basically because I'm a big Junior Dos Santos fan. Stefan Struve, we've talked, of course, about how he's just let his attributes he hasn't, he's a tall guy. He's got this range, but he doesn't know how to use it. I would have liked to have seen this fight just because it was Junior Dos Santos fighting. Now I don't know what Junior Dos Santos is going to do. They're going to get him somebody to fight. But I don't know. Jay, what do you think?
Have they fought before?
Yeah, they did. Dos Santos beat Struve, but it was early on in Struve's career.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think that's one of Struve's first losses in the UFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things where we're running out of heavyweights, aren't we?
That's totally true. But we do have a couple people coming up. At least we have Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou that we'll talk about. At least Ngannou a little bit here in the future.
Yeah, true. All right, Mike. So there's some big news stirring.
Yeah, if you guys didn't watch, the fights a couple nights ago, BJ Penn looked horrible, but what looks great is that Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw will coach Tough 25 Redemption in April. Excited to see that, man. The cast is going to be made up of former contestants and maybe a winner or two. There's no date yet for the title fight for Garbrandt and Dillashaw, but just to see them coach against each other. Dillashaw's a snake in the grass, according to Garbrandt and a lot of other people. I'm probably one of those people as well. Jay, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, and I have to add that this is the first time in a few seasons now where I'm really excited to watch Tough again. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, the last time they had rivals that were either bitter rivals or that rivals that were viable, I'll use that word, Larry King. It was probably Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey, and that was the season that Juliana Pena won, and so we're looking at 3-4 years ago. Yep. So this is going to be a great. It's going to be alpha male. Look, Cody Garbrandt, he just won the title. He's a young guy. Having him coach seems a little bit much, but he did just win the title, so I can understand it. But all the guys that come in, like your Conor McGregor's and now Cody Garbrandt, who just win the title, they have good coaches around him, and Cody Garbrandt's going to bring in Uriah Faber, Justin Buchholz, Chad Mendez, all those great guys, Master Tong. But TJ Dillashaw, he's going to bring in, I'm sure he's going to bring in Dwayne Bang Ludwig and all those guys. So we're going to see some good back and forth.
There's going to be some fireworks for sure this season. So I can't wait for it. It's going to be fireworks in and outside the octagon for sure.
Yeah, and I should have ended with that, but just happened today. I'm going to end on kind of a sad note. That's just that Tim Kennedy retired today. He just lost to the Calvin Gastelum. He came back after 2 years. Looked good in that first round, or the first 4 minutes of that first round. Then Gastelum took it to him the rest of the fight. Tim Kennedy left a really long note on either Facebook or somewhere on social media. And basically, it sums up. He thanked a ton of people, but he just said his body's not there anymore. It's just what happens to all fighters, obviously. He just felt that, when he was being driven to the hospital after the Gastelum fight, that he had never been at that point in his career, and he wasn't feeling great. And, he's already getting older. So, his body just isn't there anymore. And Tim Kennedy has always brought the fights in Strikeforce and the UFC. And, the guy's going to be okay.
Yeah. Tim Kennedy, of course, 18-6 overall, and the guy has had his last couple of losses. Of course, the one before Kelvin, we had Yoel Romero,
which wasn't a loss. He should have won that fight.
Stoolgate, by the way,
yeah.
If anybody forgot. And he's had a lot of great fights over the years, beating folks like Robbie Lawler. Anybody?
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler, he beat him.
Yep.
And of course, this was in Strikeforce, but Melvin Manhoff, he's got wins over him. Just a bunch of great guys. Yeah, he will be missed because he was a class act and just a really tough fighter to watch in the octagon.
If you want to watch one fight of his, and he'll say the same thing as you watch his fight. I forget who he fought, but it was for the fight for the troops. That card.
Yeah.
And that was a great fight. I'll never forget that fight. Evidently, I'll forget the opponent. But that fight was great.
Rafael Natal.
Yeah. Great knockout win. And he said that was the pinnacle of his career, to be able to fight in front of his fellow servicemen. He also said, what I read was that he's still going to be a part of MMA, just not fighting. So he's still going to be, fighting for the fighters to get them more, get more representation and help with the rule changes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's going to be one of those guys behind the scenes, and we'll see for a while longer now.
And I wonder if he'll get some sort of desk job, for the UFC or possibly in front of the cameras for Fox. Who knows?
I will say this: his background lends him to something like that.
Yeah. Not
just for the people who watch this sport, but also for just people who it gives them credence. It's like when Rich Franklin, with the fact that he was a teacher, back in 2004 and 5 and 6. What do you mean he's a cage fighter? He can teach. He doesn't have to do this. No, he does it because he loves it. People change their minds on the sport, and then you have somebody like Tim Kennedy doing that. Well, people might like the sport even more.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Mike, is that it for news?
That's it for news, my friend.
We pick 'em.
So, we didn't have much on, on the fight rewind, but man, we got some fights here to talk about in the We Pick 'em. First, Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen. That's going to happen on Bellator 170 on Saturday, not Friday night. Usually, guys, of course, Bellator is on Friday night, but it's going to be this Saturday. Bellator 170. Ortiz versus Sonnen, and Paul Daly versus Brennan Ward. Jay, I am going Sonnen by decision. I think he just has more in the tank, even though his last fight was November of 2013. I just think that Sonnen's going to do it.
Yeah, I hope Sonnen does it. Please let Sonnen beat Tito Ortiz. I cannot stand Ortiz. Cannot stand him.
Yep, I hear you. And coincidentally, he was the last season I watched the Celebrity Apprentice, because Tito Ortiz was on there, and that was about 5-10 years ago. But anyway, I digress. Paul Daly versus Brennan Ward. This is going to be a little tougher, I think. Possibly a title eliminator. For me, it could go either way, but Ward is more around it, Jay. But I just think he's just going to want to stand and bang like he did against Awad, and Daly's going to catch him and knock him out.
I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. If he were smart, he would take down Daly and easily win this fight. Easily. But if he stands on his feet, he's going to lose.
Yeah, this fight's going to be exciting. It's going to be fight of the night. I certainly think so.
It'll be knockout of the night.
Yeah, could be. Well, I don't know. Tito Ortiz. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see here. And then next week, back to the Friday that they normally do, Bellator 171. This show's really not that great, but it is the show, and it's Bellator, so we're going to talk about it. Melvin Gillard is back, and he's going to fight Chidi Njokuani.
What'd you call me?
I called you something in Swahili, but you got to look it up. It's something about goats and you touching them. But anyway, basically, Melvin Gillard's back from his suspension, and he's going to fight Chidi Njokuani. Now, this is the little brother of Anthony Njokuani, in case you guys get it mixed up. Chidi is 16-4, won no contest. The guy's got 10 KOs, 1 submissions. He's 3-0 in Bellator on an 8-fight unbeaten streak. I look at this, Jay, as this is Chidi Njokuani's basically his big name win, and I think Njokuani's legit.
Yeah, well, with 8 wins in a row, you can't really argue that. So we'll have to see how he does against Gillard. I think he's going to beat Gillard, though. Come on, Gillard's looked pretty bad lately.
Yeah, he got the knockout of David Rickles, but then got popped. And speaking of that, David Rickles is going to be fighting Aaron Darrow in the co-main event. Rickles, the fan favorite, the scrapper. He's fighting a guy in Darrow that's 14-8 with 10 subs and 2 TKOs. This Darrow guy is a submission ace. He's won 2 in a row. It's his only 2 Bellator fights, but he's lost 5 in a row before that. He also hasn't fought since 2014. So, I'm going to be going with Rickles because, he's as tough as they come, and Darrow hasn't fought in a while.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go caveman here too, Rickles, and I'm going to go by decision though. Here.
Yeah, I don't know how tough I don't know how tough Darrow is, so I'm just going to go by decision as well. Moving on the next day on the 28th on Saturday, that's going to be UFC on Fox 23. Really good card here, people. Cowboy Cerrone versus George Masvidal, Valentina Shevchenko versus Juliana Pena, Andrei Arlovsky versus Francis Ngannou, Aljamain Sterling versus Rafael Assunção, Sam Alvey versus Nate Marquardt. Jay, why don't you get us started with Cowboy Masvidal?
Cowboy and Masvidal, great fight here. Masvidal, actually, I go back with him to the Strikeforce days. I used to watch him on there, and I liked him. I've always liked him. I thought he was always a well-rounded fighter. He's gotten better since Strikeforce, and as you put it one time, I think you said that he's one of the best upper top 15 guys that,
He's the best fighter not in the top 10.
Exactly, and I agree with that. I think he is the best fighter not in the top 10, and this fight is going to I think this is really going to test Cowboy because Masvidal has he's got great striking, and he's good on the ground as well. But I think this fight here is going to be the biggest test so far in that division for Cowboy. What do you think?
Yeah, I look at it as Masvidal is kind of like the type of tough pressure striker that Diaz is, and Diaz gave Cowboy trouble. Both guys, they fight at 155 or 170, but Cowboy's been more successful. But again, I believe in Cowboy, man. I believe in his run. I think he's going to get past Masvidal, although I agree that he probably is maybe the toughest guy he's faced, even though Matt Brown certainly gave him some trouble. But again, I go back to the Diaz fight, and Masvidal is that type of fighter. He likes to pressure, and Cowboy doesn't like to be pressed. So I'm hoping Cowboy gets through it. I'm picking Cowboy by decision. I'll even go a little closer and say he loses the first round and he gets the next 2 rounds.
Yeah, I'm going to also go Cowboy by decision, but anything could happen here. Masvidal is legit, so we'll see. Yeah,
Valentina Shevchenko versus Juliana Pena. Shevchenko just beat Holm. She's got a win over Kaufman. She did lose to Nunez, and of course that's not a big problem. But my girl Pena, she's 8-2. Got 6 finishes in those 8 wins. Spread evenly with KOs and subs. Was a tough 18 champ. She's 4-0 in the UFC and just beat Kat Zingano, man. I go back and forth, but right now I'm going to stick with Pena, because Shevchenko, she's an amazing kickboxer, but I think Pena's strength, toughness, and grappling will finally get her the win in the end.
Yeah, I'm going Pena all day. I'm not changing from that at all because Pena is a beast. She is one of the girls in that division that I really think, or excuse me, I should just say fighters in that division because she's an awesome fighter. She's very well-rounded. She's like a pit bull in there. She'll come right after you and just either stand and strike you down or take you down. Either one. I'm going with Pena, and I think she's going to win this big, Mike. I think she's going to TKO.
Really?
She's going to TKO her. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. If I'm going to pick a way to finish, you think a TKO? Do you think though, in like the first, second, or what are you thinking?
Probably late second, early third, but it's going to happen for her. I think she's going to beat Shevchenko by TKO.
I think if she takes Shevchenko down the first round, she's going to get a TKO in the third. If she doesn't take her down and she has to stand a while, I think it's going to go to decision. But since I got to make a definitive pick somewhere, I'm going to go ahead and say decision because if Nunes couldn't finish Shevchenko, I don't know if Pena can. So I'm going to go just that. I'm going to go to the cards with Pena.
I hear you, but I think it's different styles there, even with Nunes. Nunes is great on her feet at striking, at punching, but Shevchenko is a great striker herself, and I think it kind of negated that. It kind of sort of just got them even, so to speak, in that respect.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Where
there.
Pena, I think Pena is more well-rounded. I think that she may not hit as hard as Nunes, but she's a beast all over. I mean, she wrestles more than Nunes does. I think that's where the difference is. So
the grappling for sure coming forward with the grappling as opposed to Nunes coming forward with the striking.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, man. But I think I will stick with the just because Shevchenko seems tough as well. I think it's just going to go with the cards. But I certainly don't think your pick is crazy. Andrei Arlovski versus Francis Ngannou. I'm big on Ngannou. The guy's 9-1. He's got 5 KO, TKOs, 4 subs. He's 4-0 in the UFC, all finishes, but he has no big name wins, people. Arlovski still has that KO power, but his chin is suspect, of course. Ngannou has the same power as younger. He can take a punch, whereas Arlovski can't. It seems like. So I'm just gonna go in Ngannou. I'm gonna stick my neck out and say that, even though he hasn't fought anybody really good, I'm going Ngannou knockout second round.
Yeah, I 100% with you. Ngannou second round. It's gonna be a knockout here.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have a hard time getting with Arlovski because Arlovski, look, as much as his chin is wasted away and he's not as good as he used to be, he's still good on his feet. I think Ngannou's gonna have a hard time getting him down, and I don't mean getting him down like to the mat, but just getting his timing and everything. Yeah. By the second round, he'll have it. Those are kind of the big fights, but there's some other big names that Jay and I also like that are fan favorites as well. We'll start out with Aljamain Sterling versus Rafael Sunsao. Jay, you can go ahead and go first this time. I guess we'll just alternate.
Yeah, Aljamain Sterling. I think that at one time he was looking like the prospect to beat, Yeah. And then I think he had the loss to what's his name, man.
Caraway.
I was going to say Mr. Tate, but yeah, Caraway. Caraway surprisingly beat him, which I thought there was no way that could happen. So that said, though, I still think Sterling is a better fighter than Caraway, and I think he's a better fighter than a Sunsao here, and I think he's going to beat a Sunsao, and it's going to be probably a submission third round.
You know what, man? I'm going the opposite. I think that Sterling is better than his fight against Caraway, but I still think Sunsao has had enough experience both in the cage and against big names to get the job done. He's fought a lot of bigger names than Sterling has. Sterling does look amazing, and in another universe he's still undefeated, but I just think Sunsao has just got too much for him right now. Now, if he beats Sunsao, I think we can look at that Caraway fight as a learning experience, and he's back to where he was. I will say, Jay, even though he's not undefeated.
Yeah, I think.
But I will go as Sunsao.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot to prove, Sterling. So.
Yeah, Yeah, and also for me, as Sunset, he came back after being hurt for 2-3 years, and he fought T.J. Dillashaw, UFC 200, and he didn't look horrible. He lost a unanimous decision, but he didn't look horrible, and that was after after 2 or 3 years on the fence, just sitting out for a while until he was healed up. So I'm going him for him to beat Sterling, but it's a pick'em fight, man. I really believe it's a pick'em fight, but I'm going to Senso.
Okay.
And then last but not least, we've got Smiling Sam Alvey versus Nate the Great Marquardt. If that doesn't sound like some old kind of gladiator or like WWE fight, I don't know what does. But I'm going Alvey here, man. And not just because he's a friend of the show. He's younger. He's got KO power. He's got a little bit more movement. So I'm going Alvey with a knockout in round 3. But look, Nate Marquardt, he's been around. He was the former Strikeforce champ. Just knocked out Tanner McCrory in his last fight. Won your boy $150 for that in Vegas. So not hate on Nate Marquardt, but Sam Alvey all day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sam. I can't pick against our boy, Sam Alvey. Been on the show now twice. He is going to have the tools to beat Marquardt. And I'm going to go decision for Sam Alvey. But you can't sleep on Marquardt, guys. But it's Smiling Sam Alvey, damn it. And I'm not going against him.
Yeah, and I also don't think that Marquardt's going to be able to get him down against the cage or anywhere else like that. I think Sam's going to be able to ward that off, and he's going to land something, and I think it's going to be a KO in round 3. And you think it's going to be a
decision?
Decision?
Yeah, but the KO would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would give Alvey 4 fights in a row. He's got 3 fights in a row, and all those are finishes, which is great. I believe, except maybe the last fight wasn't, but most of them are. So he's moving on up, like George Jefferson. But let's move on out, Jay. We're done.
Yep. So let's go ahead and move on out, and let's tell everybody, Mike, where they can find you writing articles at.
Facebook. Go to Go to MMA Think Tank podcast on Facebook. You'll see all the stuff I'm writing, all the news we talked about today. You'll first see it happening on Facebook. And so if you do see something I'm writing, please feel free to comment on it, even if you think it's crazy or if you love it. And also, you'll know what's coming up on the show. And you can also give us a call and email us, and we'll make sure that we've got whatever you have to say about it, we can talk about it.
Give us a call at 925-237-1296 or email us at mmathinktank@gmail.com, or you can tweet us. So we're on Twitter at MMA Think Tank PC.
And the next time we'll meet will be right after UFC Fox 23. That's on the 28th. Pretty sure Jay and I will be back right after those fights to talk about it. If not, it might be the day after, but we will have one more podcast this month. And we're looking forward to it and looking forward to what you guys have to think and say.
Exactly. So until next time, guys.
Have a good one.
We go.